The other part of the introduction, seminar's introduction, I promise not to make it too long, is regarding the title. Today's emphasis, capitalized emphasis, is on attacking the expert at deposition. Not as opposed to trial, but emphasis at deposition. The logic of cross-examination against any adverse expert in any case for the rest of time is the same. The logic is never, ever, ever going to change. Two gigantic differences between an attack at trial against an expert and an attack at deposition. At deposition, you got far more time to think and develop lines of examination. You get to try out lines of examination. You get to road test. At trial, you got a judge snapping her or his finger saying, let's move it, baby, to final argument. Secondly, at deposition, you've got far less risk. If something doesn't work out, you paid, in California now, $5 a page for the deposition transcript per page. But you're not failing in front of someone who's got to vote on the outcome of the case. So all day long, my focus is on how you attack the expert in your laboratory, otherwise known as a deposition. When and if you go to trial, the logic of the attacks will be the same. The amount of time to apply them will be different. The amount of risk you run if the attack fails will be vastly different. Oh, please today, recognize not once will I make an argument based on authority. I've got two computers in front of me. They're shooting a webinar. I'm traveling around the country doing seminars, but you are forbidden from making any assumption that I must be right because I'm controlling the slides. Your obligation, skepticism, is the highest of your duties today. Blind faith, the one unpardonable sin. A statement I borrowed from T.H. Huxley in a cause far more significant than this little seminar. Ratiocination rules. Ratiocination is the process of reasoning. It is my obligation to prove to you by force of reason that what I say about how you attack an expert is right. Otherwise, dismiss it. If I was a vastly successful lawyer, practitioner, do you think I'd be teaching seminars? Hell no. I was a small potato sole practitioner doing employment cases, doing rear-end car cases. Before that, I was a DA. Do not trust me on anything important today. I've got to prove it to you. In a perfect CLE world, in my perfect CLE world, this seminar would have at least 8 hours of teaching time. We have but a measly 390 minutes. So there have to have been some choices made. I wish it could be longer, but it's not. I ask you, oh please, trust me for at least a little while. You will perhaps, half hour in, 40 minutes in, hour in, saying, damn, I should be doing something else with my time. Something else with my CLE money, because the expert this guy is talking about isn't someone that I see, isn't someone I'm ever going to see. Trust me, I've taught this seminar to over 10,000 lawyers, probably far closer to 13, 14,000. I've taught every kind of lawyer I can think of. I promise I would not lure you to a seminar unless it was going to be relevant. I ask you, oh please, to indulge me much, much longer than a short while regarding the examples and references I have selected. The third most frequent trial advocacy tip. My third most frequent trial advocacy tip that I gave over 16 years teaching trial advocacy in the evenings. Why the evenings? Because I had my own tiny little trial practice in the daytime. What I said again and again to law students, show and tell is better than tell alone. Whether it's opening statement, the directs, the crosses, the final argument, try to find a way to visualize what you're talking about. It's more interesting, and hopefully the information will stick longer. Therefore, following my own advice, I have tried to find some brief relief from the torrent of words that will flow today, probably about 60,000 words coming out of my mouth. If the court reporter I used for a long time was right about me being a 200 words a minute person, allowing for some leeway time, easily 60,000 words. I've tried to find images to break that torrent. I love Western civilization. If I could ever find an interested high school audience, I might be tempted to teach it. But that career has now passed. There are abbreviations. Always find it exciting to begin a seminar with abbreviations. You and I are the cross-examiner all day long. We're against the tag team of opposing attorney and adverse expert. They want us, by definition, to lose the case. What we are seeking to attack, whether it's deposition or trial, is the adverse expert's opinion. Why the abbreviations, Musanti? Because if I write CE on a slide, I can make the font bigger and make the rest of the statement larger. So they occur so frequently, that's why I decided to do that. You will see quite often the abbreviation KPI. Keen psychological insight. Whose? Mine. Long ago and far away, I went to college. Freshman year of college, I took a psychology course. I received and earned a C- in Introduction to Psychology. Point. I make no claim whatsoever to have any greater understanding about human psychology than anyone in this country. It ain't my area of expertise. Thus, I put the ironic quotes around the word keen, because anytime I make a comment about psychology, I'm pretty much thinking they're self-evident propositions, but of course, you'll be the judge of that. The seminar's adverse experts. It is impossible to teach advocacy unless you have a set of facts or a set of mock facts. We're going to put lion's share of time, 80% of this seminar, no, 90% of the seminar is going to be about a real life expert. And every once in a while, I'll make a very quick reference to a couple of made-up experts. The seminar's fact expert comes from a famous case. It comes from the case. It comes from the WW2 of litigated cases thus far in this country, at least the ones that have been on television. It is the state of California versus famous former football player O.J. Simpson. It was in all the papers. I trust you heard about it. The state of California accused O.J. Simpson of having committed a double homicide on June 12, 1994. The opening statement in that case began that day. The jury was sequestered in that case for 266 days. I did some research, did the Google on the internets. I could not find what was the second longest sequestered jury in the history of the country. Maybe my researching was bad, or there just wasn't anything close enough to say this is second place to Simpson. The jury did more than 50% of the time in custody that Simpson did. And they butchered less than 50% of the people that he butchered. Point. Of course, O.J. Simpson killed those two people. End of story. It's not worth any conversation. If you paid attention to the case and you concluded otherwise, we start conservatorship proceedings now. There were 24 jurors selected, 12 voters, 12 alternates. On day 94 of the sequestration, 6 jurors had already been bounced from the jury. 2 jurors per month had been bounced from the jury. In the great state of California, in a criminal case, unless both sides agree, you need 12 jurors to come to a verdict. On April 21st, 13 of the 12 jurors and 6 alternates, 13 out of 18, refused to board the bus to take them to court Friday morning. In a note to Judge Ito, who was the trial judge, they requested he come and speak with them at the hotel. The Simpson jury on April 21st, 1994, mutinied. There is nothing like it I was able to find on the internet. There's some Missouri case where some Missouri large panel, not yet selected, did not want to sit on a case, very small amount of marijuana, and they said, no, we don't want to be jurors in such a petty-ass case. I don't know of another serious case like Simpson when the jury ever mutinied. Major problems in this case, keeping the jury sane. The verdict was October 3rd, 1995. Of course, it resounded around the world. O.J. Simpson is legally, rule of law people we are, is legally not guilty for those murders. Did he commit them? Yes. But he's legally not guilty, therefore properly not punished for them. The DA's case theory, our case theory, we're in the shoes of the DA today. We're going to be taking on one of Simpson's experts in the case. In that case, O.J. Simpson, handsome star, celebrity, actor of sorts, marries beautiful lady, Nicole Brown, becomes Nicole Brown Simpson. They have 2 children, marital discord. They get divorced. Our case theory is on the day of the murders, Nicole Brown Simpson and some of her family members went to a school recital for the 9-year-old girl. It was a play or singing or dancing, whatever it was. O.J. Simpson, father of the daughter, of course, was at the recital. He felt that he had been snubbed. Big story. O.J. Simpson was unhappy, not big surprise, the acrimonious divorce, unhappy with how the money arrangements were between the 2 former spouses, how the children are being raised, perhaps who she is dating in her life, whether that's his business or not, put aside. So he was unhappy about what had happened earlier in that day. On the evening of June 12, 1994, Nicole Brown Simpson went with her mother to a fancy restaurant in Los Angeles called Mezzaluna. She had some rigatoni, some salad, some French bread, and some wine. She drove her mom back home. The daughter and mother speak, and what happens is mother says, "I forgot my glasses at the restaurant." Daughter says, somewhere around 9:40, 45-ish in the evening, "I'll call the restaurant and see if they can find your glasses." So she calls the restaurant. Someone in the restaurant looks around and says, "Yes, we've got your mom's glasses." Well, a friend of hers, Ronald Goldman, who was a waiter at the restaurant, said he was getting off approximately 10 o'clock, and he would bring Nicole's mother's glasses to Nicole's condominium. Our case theory. O.J. Simpson, stewing over how he had been snubbed, or in quotes, snubbed earlier that day, wanted to renew his gripes with Nicole Brown Simpson. He went to her condominium 2 miles away from where he lived, got in an argument with her, popped her upside the head with a fist or an object. She fell to the ground in front of her house, head hit cement. Our case theory, she's knocked unconscious. Who then comes up, unknowing, unsuspecting, Ronald Goldman with mother's glasses, and O.J. Simpson then turns on Ronald Goldman, perhaps thinking Ronald Goldman is a boyfriend of Nicole Brown. I don't know the truth of that. And turns his rage on Goldman. Simpson has a knife. Simpson kills Ronald Goldman. More details later. Simpson, recognizing obviously he has committed murder on Ronald Goldman, then makes a gruesome decision that he must also kill his unconscious wife, otherwise she will be a witness against him. Our case theory is Simpson went over to face down Nicole Brown Simpson, grabbed mane of her gorgeous hair, pulled back her neck, and did his very best to cut her head off. And came very close, knife not going through vertebrae, but basically all the soft tissue was cut. That's our case theory. And then O.J. Simpson then fled, bloody clothes, back to his house with the knife, changed his clothes, got rid of the bloody clothes, and went to the airport that night, prearranged, to go from, coincidentally, from Los Angeles to your great city in Chicago, because he was going to play golf or something with Hertz people the very next day. In broad part, that's our case theory. A major part of our evidence in the case or the autopsy reports on the two victims. The autopsies were done by Dr. Irwin Golden. I hope I don't confuse and say Goldman at times. You'll know the right, you'll catch me when I do, perhaps. So, he did the autopsy on the two dead people. He testified at the preliminary hearing about it. It turns out that Dr. Golden made a bushel of mistakes regarding the autopsies. So, not too good for us, the prosecutors. Moreover, he was alleged to have been overheard to say, maybe I ought to kill 9 or 10 of these MFing attorneys. It was unclear if in fact he said that. That's why the question mark. It was unclear, was he referring to defense attorneys who raked him over the coals at the preliminary hearing, or was he unhappy with DAs, or both? What happened at the trial is the DA's office decided not to call Golden. He had mistakes, he had a prickly personality, and he did not quite have the heavyweight CV, curriculum vitae, to do battle with the defense forensic expert. So, what the DA called was his boss, the coroner of Los Angeles, just recently retired. His name's Dr. Lakshmanan. But Lakshmanan is only his first name. His full name is Sajavajaswaran. Spells just like it sounds. He was the longest single witness in the Simpson case. 8 days of direct examination, where the DA, Brian Kelberg, we're going to see a fair amount of him, went over every nook and cranny of the two autopsies and asked about mistakes made, and then asked Lakshmanan, despite these mistakes, is there, no pun intended, a useful body of information upon which you can opine about time of death, cause of death, manner of death? And Dr. Lakshmanan, I'm using his first name, not his last, because Dr. Lakshmanan, knowing how difficult his last name could be, invited everyone to only call him by his first name. No disrespect intended. So Lakshmanan said, yep, I have enough information, despite the mistakes made by my subordinate, to opine time of death, cause of death, manner of death. The lead trial lawyers, I have quotes around the word lead. 3 of these are, a 4th isn't. Robert Shapiro was at one time the lead lawyer for O.J. Simpson. But after a period of time, a couple months, I think it was, the lead attorney became Johnny Cochran. Johnny Cochran was calling the shots about how the case would go down, and Robert Shapiro clearly became a subordinate attorney. Shapiro had done in the case in June the cross-examination of Lakshmanan. Shapiro is going to do the direct examination of the opposite to Lakshmanan. For the prosecution, the lead lawyers clearly were Marcia Clark and Chris Darden. Cochran, in his final argument, makes mention about the prosecution not calling Golden to the stand. The history of man runneth not to the contrary. Nobody around here can remember any time that the coroner who did the autopsy, Golden, the actual autopsy on these bodies, wasn't called by these prosecutors. Why do you think that was? They didn't call the coroner. They chose instead to call Dr. Lakshmanan, who came in here. They showed you what they thought about Golden. They talked about this man so badly. I mean, for 8 days, we heard Dr. Lakshmanan talk to you. They talk about length of time in this trial. Let me put that in perspective for you. For 8 days, Dr. Lakshmanan sat on that stand and went through direct examination by Brian Kelberg, assistant DA. There were 13 DAs that had involvement in the case. Not all with witnesses. Some were law in motion. Kelberg was one of 13. In the prosecution case in June, Lakshmanan is role-playing. He is playing the role of the killer, O.J. Simpson, and Kelberg is playing the role of Goldman. We'll get back to this later. The ruler in front is a knife held to Goldman's throat. The LA Times found an article said about Kelberg, he's got the shy, rumpled look of a nerdy nebbish. Brian Kelberg is a nerdy nebbish. He's a scientific guy. Very, very smart. Disclosure. I have a man crush on Brian Kelberg. I think Kelberg is one hell of a complete lawyer. I say that without any irony. I was never a complete lawyer. I was pretty good at acquiring facts, attacking facts, and arguing facts, but completeness was not my forte. Brian Kelberg is the one way, way back when who loaned me the tapes I would use for the video. I've had an hour-long lunch with Brian Kelberg somewhere in 1995, and every once in a while I'll contact him. I had not contacted him for several years. I had a conversation with him last week. Sent him an email last night. You guys need no man crush on Brian Kelberg, and therefore you need look with keen scrutiny as to whether or not my judgments about his cross, about Shapiro's direct examination, about the performance of the expert are tainted by bias. I add a couple more facts of my interesting bio. I was a cop in San Francisco for 4 years. I loved it. Cried on my last day. Had to go to full-time law school, couldn't do part-time. My father was a cop for 30 years. I get 5 relatives. Some were cousins, related by marriage or otherwise. They were cops. I was a DA. So I have a pro-prosecution bias. Simpson's expert that opposes Dr. Lakshmanan, that attacks, in effect, Dr. Lakshmanan, is a Mount Olympus expert. I say without any fear of contradiction, you have never, you will never cross-examine an expert higher in her or his field than this guy is in his field. Mount Olympus. His name is Dr. Michael Baden. He's a late witness in the case. You see the jury sequestered 215 days as he is testifying. And let me add a little twist. They're now down to 14 jurors. 10 jurors have gone bye-bye. There is nothing like it in American jurisprudence. They are 3 jurors away from a mistrial. Here's what he looks like. When he has the gray suit on, it's Thursday, August the 10th. When he's got the dark suit on, it's Friday, August the 11th. I think Baden is wonderful at stagecraft. I think he is masterful. No irony, no quotes around those words, not for me. I think that guy is damn good in front of a jury. He has world-class expertise, qualifications, yet he has my judgment. You guys decide. By the way, guys, both genders, all day and all webinar long. He has a rumpled suit quality, not very much fastidious in his look. Not that he's improper at all, but he doesn't seem to be vain. He's a down-to-earth sort of guy that makes him, if you're the cross-examiner, damn dangerous. He has high jury appeal.
Gentlemen. Good morning, Dr. Baden.
Good morning, Mr. Shapiro.
How are you today?
Fine, thank you.
Dr. Baden, what is your profession?
I'm a physician, medical examiner, forensic pathologist.
My judgment, he begins at the beginning with sheepishness. How are you? Fine. God, if I got to be somewhere, okay, I'll be here. You want me here, so I'll be here. I'd rather be other places than on worldwide TV, making my career forever, and one day be able to sit next to Greta Van Susteren anytime a blonde is lost in Aruba, which is where he now shows up routinely. Here's career making, but he's sheepish about it. The detailing of his awesome CV took more than an hour. Judge Lance Ito, coincidentally graduate from the same law school as me. He doesn't know me. I know him like you guys know him. Judge Lance Ito had a rule in his courtroom. He, in effect, said to the lawyers, if you're arguing a motion to the court or you're examining a witness, here's the rule. Keep talking until you drop from exhaustion, because I, Judge Lance Ito, ain't cutting anybody off in this entire case. Except the rules had to change when they finally got to August, because it's a marathon case, and Ito is now 3 jurors away from a mistrial, largely because of the way that Ito has run the trial. He has mismanaged this thing. And so he's got to be worried about the mistrial. So Ito finally says, can we get to some stuff on the Simpson case? Briefly stated, Baden's qualifications, well deserved an hour or more. He has done 20,000 autopsies, he says, and supervised many times that number. I made it 50. Disclosure, Spoke to someone earlier this morning. I'm an English Lit major. We didn't do any autopsies in English Lit. Me taking on Baden regarding autopsies is a damn mismatch. Baden's CV has touched JFK and MLK. In 1978 and 79, what a select committee did, where's my little cheat sheet note? Yeah. In 1978-79, there was a select committee, House Select Committee, that got together heavyweight people in various forensic disciplines to examine these two highly charged assassinations to see if they could drain them of some of their mystery. They had an autopsy panel, forensic pathology panel for each, I think 5 to 10 autopsy guys on each panel. They chose Baden to be the chairperson on the King panel. They chose Baden to be the chairperson on the Kennedy panel. Wow. The United States government has put its imprimatur on Dr. Michael Baden, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. Jury's that way all day long. Moreover, the Russian government found some bones charred in a forest in 1990-something it was, and they asked Dr. Michael Baden and some others to fly to Russia to look at the bones, to opine whether they thought the bones belonged to the Romanovs. Highly sensitive matter. And in addition to his heavyweight Mount Olympus CV, 90 days before his testimony in the Simpson case, in the very same courtroom, in the very same capacity as a forensic expert in a murder case, Baden was called by, drum roll please, the prosecution. Our office threw its arms around Baden 90 days earlier, in effect arguing to a jury, this man has world-class expertise, world-class integrity, believe him when he says the guy we have on trial is the guy who committed the murder. How the hell do you stand in front of that jury and say Baden lost his world-class expertise or integrity somewhere in the intervening 90 days? Not an easy argument to make. Point. I did not choose low-hanging fruit in this case. I did not bring some accident reconstruction expert from Contra Costa, California. Where the hell is that? Someplace a little bit east of San Francisco, where I live, and say, okay, let's rake accident reconstruction guy over the coals. You wouldn't care, understandably. I chose high-hanging fruit. So, Baden is going to say, in effect, he loves district attorneys. He has praised one DA already. He is going to praise a second DA, which is why he uses the word also. Watch the stagecraft. My judgment, Baden is going to perceptibly squirm in his chair as he says, Albert McKenzie, also a terrific DA.
And would you share with the ladies and gentlemen of the jury highlight cases that you have been contacted to investigate on behalf of the people of the County of Los Angeles by the District Attorney's Office?
Yes, I think the first contact was in the death of John Belushi in the early 1980s, where I was an expert for the District Attorney's Office in Los Angeles in that case.
And the jury rendered a conviction in that case?
Yes.
Who was the prosecutor in that case?
Mr. Albert McKenzie, also a terrific district attorney in Los Angeles District Attorney's Office.
Now, you may be asking, this emphasis of this seminar is about attacking the expert at deposition. You guys are civil attorneys, or at least the preponderance of you are. What's the story, Musanti? You've got a trial going on. Moreover, you've got a criminal trial. Well, in your gray hymnals, otherwise known as the materials, you can read the full explanation of why I chose Baden without any hesitation whatsoever. The shorthand answer, I repeat, is the logic of attacking an expert. Whether it's a criminal trial, a civil trial, or a civil deposition, never changes one iota. The logic is not dependent on the subject matter of the case, nor dependent on the forum. Not one iota changes. Two vast differences, I repeat. At trial, you got far less time, and at trial, you got far more risk. Adverse expert's opinion, that's our target.